The New York Comic Con is a pretty big deal. Every year, the show attracts hundreds of thousands of attendees from all over the world. In 2014, the show attracted 151,000 people, thus surpassing the San Diego Comic Con in size. In 2015, a record-breaking 170,000 attendees were at the New York Comic Con. What happens at a Comic Con, you ask? Lots of things. The two main attractions are the panels that are held for upcoming television shows, films, and of course comic books, and then there's the show floor, which is a place where not only comic books are sold, but also toys, games, and an assortment of other merchandise. There's more to the main show floor than buying and selling, however. Here, you can often try your hands on things that are being sold, you can meet the authors and artists behind your favorite comic books, the developers of your favorite games, and see a whole ton of cool stuff. You could spend the day taking pictures of all the awesome cosplay that's out on the show floor. Or maybe you'll spend some time in line for an autograph from your favorite Star Trek actor. There is a whole lot of stuff to do at Comic-Con. This year, Blackman and Robin was out on the show floor. Personally, I had a lot of fun interviewing people, taking pictures, and attending panels. While I mostly enjoyed myself, there were some aspects of the show that I feel could have been improved. I'll be talking about this matter in a few moments. Afterwards, you can check out the rest of our coverage of the show, including our interviews, some of the best cosplay from the show, and much, much more. The first time I attended the New York Comic Con was in 2011. My attendance of the show was pretty last minute. I had no idea that the show was going on until a couple of days beforehand. My father, aka my camera dad, took me into the city where we managed to get down to the Javits Center, the place where the New York Comic Con is held, and somehow we managed to purchase tickets. It was my very first con of any sort, and I must say that it was a good experience. It was there that I discovered Orcs Must Die, I got to interview some of the folks at Robot Entertainment, I took some incredibly unstable footage of crowds, and I began to exercise skills that have served me as an entertainment journalist over the years. While the show floor was pretty crowded in 2011, the 105,000 attendees were still pretty easy to navigate around. While I didn't go to the show in 2012, I have attended every year since then. The show has grown both in attendance and in scope. Obtaining tickets is a bit of an ordeal in itself, as they tend to sell out online very, very quickly. This year, the online queue system for getting tickets was rather bogged down. The whole affair was an embarrassing fiasco that also happened to occur in 2014. Right now, I'm not talking about the difficulty in getting tickets. Rather, I'm taking a moment to talk about the things that have gone wrong with the size of the show as of late, and why the 2016 New York Comic Con will either have to be smaller or better organized. During every big convention or expo, for individual attendees, there's a chance that something will go wrong. Perhaps you'll lose an item or wind up stuck in line for something that's ultimately a disappointment. That sort of thing happens all the time. This year, however, people lost things, and it wasn't always their fault. Say hello to Redditor WatcherFox. She lost many of the items that she purchased this year after checking her items in at the VIP coat check. In case you're not familiar with the idea, the concept of the coat check is that you can bring your coat, as well as any other important items, and you won't have to lug them around on the floor. But they'll be a whole lot safer than if you were to just, leave them under a table somewhere. After you check your items in, usually you're given a little card with a number on it. Redditor WatcherFox received number 548. After a long day at Comic-Con, she returned to the coat check and discovered that the staff there had given bag number 548 to somebody else. The bag and its contents didn't have great monetary value. It was mostly comics, a fancy Firefly leather bookmark, Wonder Woman's arm cuffs, and other things. However, it was the meaning behind those items that really made them special to her. The comics that she'd purchased she had signed specially for a friend, and the Wonder Woman cuffs? Well, here's exactly what she had to say about them. A family member of mine was given some devastating news recently. I bought the Wonder Woman cuffs to cheer them up, and hopefully make them smile during this time and share some of the con excitement to lift their spirits. If Wonder Woman cuffs can't fight cancer, I don't know what can. Unfortunately for WatcherFox, she never received her items back, and she was never reimbursed. Mind you, the 2015 New York Comic Con wasn't her first rodeo. She's been to many, many conventions around the United States, and she's never seen anything handled quite this poorly. WatcherFox spent days at the convention talking to staff, getting into contact with management, sending emails, and generally being given the runaround, all to no avail. As I said before, sometimes bad things happen at Comic-Con, and at such large events in general. While it's sad that WatcherFox lost her things, what's worse is the way that things were handled, or rather, the way that they weren't handled at all. For perspective, a couple of years back during PAX East, I stayed at a hotel and checked my things into a coat room and, surprise, I lost my things. What happened? The hotel that I was staying at reimbursed me for the things that were lost in the coat room. They paid for their mistake, and they paid promptly. The fact that after days and days, WatcherFox still has not received any sort of correspondence from management regarding this issue is indicative of the fact that ReedPop simply cannot keep up with the demand. Comic-Con apparently is just too big to manage for them. Is this my only example of Comic-Con's explosive growth leading to problems? Absolutely not. During the show, there was a panel that I was looking to get into, one regarding the upcoming Star Wars novels. The line was tight, and we in line received instructions from the staff to stand closer and closer to one another. As we began to invade one another's personal space, I made a joke that I'll not repeat here for the sake of taste, but the ice was broken in my tight-packed corner of the line, and things were significantly less awkward for a moment. I'm not a big guy, and as far as I can tell, I'm not very creepy, but I don't think that the female attendees to either side of me felt particularly comfortable. Keep in mind, this is the same Comic-Con that's littered with signs informing attendees that cosplay is not consent. There have been incidents in the past necessitating those signs. Nobody wants unwarranted physical contact, and jamming people together into a line is only going to exacerbate the issue. That's not the only problem that arose from pushing people close together. What really went wrong was that after an hour in line, more than half of the attendees who waited after being crammed in like sardines were informed that the room where the panel was being held was already full. A small case of nerd rage broke out. With angry clangs, the metal railing that was used to contain the lines was hurled to the floor, and there was a shout of riots. Fortunately, most of the frustrated attendees were level-headed, and no riots broke out. I'm surprised that the fellow with the remote-controlled R2-D2 wasn't booed out of the Javits Center when his droid started playing the main theme to the Star Wars films. Still, how much time was wasted for the couple hundred people who were waiting in line? You don't really have to do the math to realize that's a couple hundred hours worth of time that could have been spent doing other things at Comic-Con. It's not as though the New York Comic-Con happens every day, and it's not as though the New York Comic-Con is easy to get into. Remember the ticketing fiasco that happened earlier in the year? So to put it in perspective, this is an event that's hard to get into, and then once you're there, you may have a good time, but there's a chance that something will go horribly wrong and ruin things for you. Keep in mind, these problems are not isolated incidents. Need more proof of the problems? Alright. For fans who waited about 3 hours in line to get into the Marvel Netflix panel, many of them wound up not being able to attend at all. Now why did this happen? Keep in mind, these were fans who got there on time. So why couldn't they be let in? Well, for larger panels like that one, there's a system of wristbands. You have to wear the wristband in order to get into the show. To get the wristband, you wait in line as these people did. The thing is, for the Marvel Netflix panel, the staffers gave out the wristbands to the overflow line. The people who got there last got to go into the panel, whereas people who were waiting there all day long, disappointments. Alright, so you know what the problems are. So what are the solutions? I'm not a large event organizer. I couldn't tell you how to completely overhaul the New York Comic Con without totally breaking it. The best I can do are make my suggestions about how to improve the event for everybody involved. The first thing I'd recommend is counting and capping. The little disaster that was the Star Wars line could have been averted if the organizers counted the attendees in line. Counting the people coming into the line would have made it clear that the room would be at its limit soon, and that it would have been time to start turning people away instead of cramming them into each other's personal space. After a line's attendance is counted, the line itself can be capped, and nobody else has to wait for a thing that they're not going to get into. This wouldn't just be good to prevent people from wasting time in line. This would be important for safety as well. I've always noted how friendly the New York Comic Con crowd is, year after year, even with the growth. But what if one year, a group of attendees gets dangerously rowdy after being told they can't enter a panel? The few staffers on patrol couldn't handle an actual nerd riot. And besides that, jamming people into one another's personal space creates another sort of safety issue. My second suggestion would be eliminate camping altogether. The main stage at the New York Comic Con is cleared in between panels. You're not allowed to wait in the room for the panel you're interested in, which is great because it prevents people from camping in between panels. Unfortunately, this policy is only applied to the main stage. Last year, I attended a panel about running a Kickstarter campaign, and I noticed an unusual prevalence of Doctor Who cosplayers. They were camping the room because they were waiting for their Doctor Who panel to begin. Thus, if you wanted a seat for the Kickstarter panel, you wouldn't just have to beat the other crowdfunding hopefuls to the room, you would also have to beat a small army of Daleks, Doctors, Cybermen, TARDISes, and the occasional automaton from the Madame du Pompadour. Every room could benefit from being cleared in between panels. If you'd like to get into a room after a panel ends, well, you can get back in line. My last suggestion would be to have more and more competent staff. Because running a show as large as the New York Comic Con is a stressful and expensive affair, and it takes a massive toll on the employees hired to keep everything together. Overstressed and overworked employees ultimately lead to poorer experiences for everybody involved. As we highlighted earlier, staff incompetence cost one attendee the gifts she bought for her friends, including those Wonder Woman cuffs that might have helped fight cancer. More staff, and indeed more competent staff, would prevent these sorts of problems from occurring in the future. But the crew that presided over the hundreds of thousands of attendees in 2015, there were just not enough people working the floor. Please keep in mind that I mean no disrespect to the hundreds of employees who worked hard to make Comic-Con a great experience for the attendees. I know that plenty of folks went above and beyond the call of duty to make it work. Unfortunately, there just weren't enough people working the floor to guarantee a good experience for everybody. So this all raises the question, is it time to downsize? Has ReedPop, the company responsible for putting on Comic-Con every year, simply reached its limit with the New York Comic-Con? Again, don't get me wrong. I'm happy to see so many people at Comic-Con, and I wish that more could attend. Unfortunately, the Javits Center can only hold so many people comfortably, and it can only hold so many people safely. In 2014, when the show became bigger than the San Diego Comic-Con, 151,000 wasn't a comfortable number. This year, in 2015, 170,000 was barely manageable. Unless Reed Exhibitions can find a larger expo center, no, or find better ways to occupy large groups of people for a large amount of time in order to reduce congestion and improve the flow on the show floor, it's time to start selling less tickets to the New York Comic Con. So what do you think? Is it time for the New York Comic Con to downsize, or am I complaining about nothing? You can let us know what you think over on Twitter at Blackman and Robin. Well, that's it for my thoughts on how to improve the New York Comic Con. Enjoy the rest of the show. I'm here at the 2015 New York Comic Con, and I'm checking out a comic that I checked out last year. It's called Night Stars, and it's very interesting. It involves alien abductions and children. Two very interesting things that, when combined in comics, make for a rather unique mix. So I'm talking here with the fellows who made it. What's your name, good sir?
Tim Laddie.
Michael DeChesser.
It's very nice to meet you. Now, could you tell the folks at home what your roles are on this comic?
I am the writer and the artist of the comic and the creator, so.
And my company, DeChesser Media, has optioned the rights to this comic from Mr. Laddie over here.
I see. So you're the publisher, essentially, and very cool. And you're the fellow who made it. Well, I'll be talking to you first, Mr. Laddie. So now, could you tell the folks at home quickly what your comic's about?
Basically, it's about these three kids who are taken aboard a flying saucer, and when they're on there, the saucer kind of morphs around them and puts them in these suits that make them look like aliens. But the saucer is actually a time machine, so it takes them back in time where they crash land in Roswell, New Mexico, and so they are the Roswell aliens. And from there, it's their journeys throughout time dealing with history and mysteries. They knock Amelia Earhart's plane out the sky. They get a Yeti as a pet. They see the pyramids get built. So anything that in the past that was kind of unsolved, it's these three little kids that are behind it, these three sixth graders.
Oh, that sounds very interesting. Now, I mean, I'm a big fan of stories that involve time travel. Are you a fan of Doctor Who by any chance?
I've only seen a couple episodes, so I gotta be honest with y'all. But I hear it's awesome.
It is.
I need to watch it. So yes.
Yes. What kind of stuff did inspire Night Stars? I'd like to know.
Actually, a lot of stuff did. Sliders was probably a big thing. Back to the Future, obviously. There's actually a little hidden DeLorean in the first issue and stuff like that. So I throw in little Easter eggs from other time travel stories. And just stuff when I was growing up, cartoon shows. There's actually a cartoon show that barely anybody remembers, and now I can't remember the name of it. But it was about these three kids that flew around in like the Sphinx or something like that. It was a really strange show. It was, but that was one of my influences as well.
Very cool. So now, for how long have you been a comic artist?
Professionally, probably hitting a decade now, something like that. I went to Chicago and I got a job with Ape Entertainment, and I've been drawing comic books ever since. And I just finished a stint with IDW doing Creeple People.
Very cool. Now, what made you want to get started working with comics?
I don't think it was a choice, man, to be honest with you. I just loved comic books. I grew up watching like the old Adam West and Burt Ward stuff on TV. So I think it was just comics chose me, you know. So yeah, man.
So now, if you okay, so I have to ask this of everybody: what is your favorite comic of all time?
Favorite comic of all time. I'm gonna throw you for a little bit of a loop here. It's actually Spider-Girl. It's the story of May Parker, who is Peter and Mary Jane's daughter, and she inherits spider powers. And it came out in the 90s, and I'm friggin' obsessed with it. I think it's unbelievable. It's 200 issues. I keep telling all my friends about it. They're like, dude, you're 34 years old. You shouldn't be reading Spider-Girl. I don't care. Spider-Girl's the bomb. Go read it. If you're not reading Night Stars, go read Spider-Girl from the 90s. So, yeah.
You heard it here, folks. Read Spider-Girl if you get the opportunity. Oh, from the 90s. That's for distinction. Okay. Now, also, so what's your favorite part of the working as a comics artist and writer?
There's a lot of great parts about it, but I guess the scheduling is pretty loose, that you make up your own schedule. So I get to hang out with my cat all day long and watch TV shows and stuff like that, listen to music, wear my basketball shorts to work, you know? So, yeah.
Now, what would you say is the hardest part of being a comic artist and writer?
That you make your own schedule and you work from home and you wear your basketball shorts all day long and stuff like that. So it's a tit for tat. Yeah, you have to wake up and you have to be ready and stuff like that. So it's very, very, you have to be very self-motivated, because you can easily catch yourself, you know, playing Xbox or something like that. Yeah, Xbox and video games, if you want to make it in this industry, throw them out the window. They are a time vampire. They are no good. They're poison. So yeah.
Now, what would you say is, if you had any advice for young comic artists, what would it be?
It would be to draw. There's not a trick here. I heard a quote the other day. So you got to be committed. You know what I mean? If you like bacon and eggs, the chicken was part of the product, but the pig was committed. You know what I mean? You got to be committed to it. So go for it. Go for it all the way. Draw all the time. Draw everything, and don't get discouraged, because we all make mistakes. So yeah.
So what you're saying essentially is you have to be the bacon if you want to make the bacon.
You have to be committed. Yeah, you have to be committed. Yeah, definitely.
Very interesting. So now, how long have you been working on the Night Stars comic?
Probably a few years now. I actually, it's based off of a Van Gogh painting that I had hanging over my couch. And one day it just kind of like, I was like, that would be kind of cool. And that's where it kind of started from. So probably 2-3 years now, maybe 4 or 5 years, really, to be honest with you. I've been picking around with it.
That is a very interesting source of inspiration.
If you look throughout all the issues, there's actually, I put Van Gogh paintings everywhere. So if there's a painting on the wall in the background, it's usually going to be a Van Gogh piece. It's kind of like an Easter egg and kind of like an homage to stealing the title of the book from him. But he's not going to sue me, so you can't get me for it.
Now, you have as good as obligated me to ask, have you seen the Van Gogh episode of Doctor Who?
No, I haven't. I'm more inclined to watch Doctor Who now, though.
Yes, if you have the opportunity, check that one out. It is absolutely brilliant. Well, Mr. Laddie, it has been a pleasure speaking with you.
It's called Mysterious Cities of Gold. Go read Spider-Girl and go watch Mysterious Cities of Gold from the 80s. It's awesome. So yeah.
Thank you for letting us know. Mysterious Cities of Gold, ladies and gentlemen. So now this has been Mr. Laddie and
Michael DeChesser.
been a pleasure talking with both of you.
Things you should hear. One of the interesting things that Tim is actually very humble. One of the interesting things is that this started out as a Kickstarter campaign a couple of years ago, and that's how I got wind of it. And I went online onto Kickstarter, and I saw that he was looking for funding for his first one, for Night Stars issue 1. And I was intrigued by the story, and I contributed to his Kickstarter campaign. And when the first book was finished and it came out, and everything was beautiful and looked great, and the story was really terrific, my company came and optioned the rights to market more issues and also look for movie and animation deals for him. And that's where we came in, correct.
So now you're the publisher. So you stumbled across this fellow by Kickstarter. Do you do a lot of discovery through Kickstarter for new comic projects to publish?
No, actually I don't. This is actually a first time for my company to go into this arena, and we felt that Tim Laddie's property is a great vehicle to be launched into this type of arena.
Very interesting, because I mean, Kickstarter is really taking off as a venue, not just for funding a project, but also for essentially picking up interest in a thing.
Exactly, and not only that, but since last year was our first Comic-Con where we launched issue 1, literally had them printed a couple days right before Comic-Con, it also got the interest of another producer. His name is Michael Uslan. He's the executive producer of all the Batman films and executive producer of the Lego movie. And now he has partnered with us to help bring this more mainstream. So he's looking into a development deal for us for multiple animation series, a film, crossover into video games, as well as into merchandise.
Wow, that's really quite fantastic. So
he is very humble. He's all about the art, all about the story, and I'm all about getting him a little more well known and getting this a little more mainstream.
So what you're saying is we should be keeping an eye out for Night Stars, the television show.
You should be keeping 2 eyes out for Night Stars. Correct.
I'll be keeping my eyes on the skies. Oh, Mr. Laddie and forgive me.
DeChesser, Michael DeChesser.
Mr. DeChesser, it has been wonderful talking with both of you. I cannot wait to read the next episode. Well, see, you got me already. I cannot wait to read the next issue of Night Stars. Now, for folks at home, where can they go to find out more about these comics?
They go to nightstarscomic.com, and they will have a link to the Comixology page to download digital versions, have press releases about news and updates, as well as links to our Facebook page and fan pages.
Fantastic. Well, you heard it here, folks. For Blackman and Robin, this is Jordan Cameron, signing off. I'm here at the 2015 New York Comic Con, and it's usually a very happy occasion. But today, however, we're going to take a moment to talk about some of the sadder things in life. Would you tell me your name?
Nicolene Evans.
Nice to meet you, Miss Evans. Now, I'm taking a look at your book called Blue Spots. Now, this is a children's book about some of the sadder things in life. Could you tell the folks at home what exactly the premise is?
The premise is, it's basically a story for grief counseling. It's a story of hope. It's meant to help people who have suffered a loss, illness, depression, tough family life. And it's meant to be a reminder that, you're strong enough to carry on through the toughest times in life.
That's very interesting. So what made you want to do something like this?
Just life in general. I feel like everyone's had something that's, brought them down or just been tough to get through. So I think it's important to remind people that there's hope and that you don't need to let it beat you, and there's healthy ways and constructive ways to get through the sad stuff.
Absolutely. I hear you on that. I think that's very important. It's not something you see too often in children's books,
Right.
So, now how long have you been an author, might I ask?
I started writing in 2009, so I started writing novels in 2009, and then I did my first kids book. I'd say it was probably 2012 I started writing it, and then I had Sunny Fiend illustrate it, and that took about a year, and then I got the finished product, which came out so great. I was so excited about it.
Very nice. So you had a pretty good process then.
Yeah.
Now, can you tell us a little bit more about the illustrations? I mean, they are very gorgeous.
Yeah.
They have a kind of Burton-esque vibe to them.
Yeah, I call Sunny Fiend, I classify her as like whimsical Tim Burton. She's amazing. You can check out her website, sunnyfiend.com, and she has tons of other stuff that's beautiful, similar to this, very Tim Burton-esque. I've had people say it looks like box trolls. I actually asked her because I wasn't sure. I was like, hey, did you do box trolls? She's like, no, a lot of people have asked me that, but her stuff is brilliant. She's really great.
Oh, very cool. Now, regarding the story itself, is there anything else you could tell the folks at home about it without spoiling too much?
Well, basically, it's meant to, it's a story about sadness, but it's meant to make you happy. It's meant to be a story of hope. It's meant to remind you that, you are strong enough. And I think it's, a great learning tool. It's meant for ages 6 to 9, but it's a good teaching book for ages 5 and 6, and it's kind of a novelty book for adults. I find a lot of adults really enjoy it. They find something that they can relate to within it. So,
Have you by chance seen Pixar's Inside Out?
no, but I saw when it came out. I saw the trailers for it and everything, and it looked awesome. And it reminded me a bit about colors representing emotions. So,
Yeah, I bring it up just because I have the feeling you would dig it, because it covers a lot of similar themes to your book.
Right, yeah.
So essentially, if you like Inside Out, folks, you should absolutely check out Blue Spots. It has a very similar set of ideas, because Inside Out really covered some interesting things about emotional health. So that's why I bring it up.
well, I'm gonna definitely check it out. I love Pixar, so sounds like a perfect match for me.
So for folks at home, can you tell them where they can go to check out more stuff about Blue Spots and perhaps more of your work?
Yeah, absolutely. My website's NicoleneEvans.com, and everything is on Amazon. So if you search my name or if you search the book in my name, it should show up. So
Fantastic.
my website up close.
Here we are. Well, folks, you heard it here. Check out Nicolene Evans' stuff. Miss Evans, it has been a pleasure speaking with you. I hope you enjoy your Comic-Con.
Well, thank you so much. I appreciate it. Nice to meet you.
How long have you been hunting giant robot dinosaurs?
Well, ever since the human race started dying out.
Oh, that really strikes me as a good time to get started, Now, do you have any advice for other people who might want to hunt giant robot dinosaurs?
Bring a weapon. I've noticed that New York Comic Con has been taking weapons away, but everyone, hold on to your weapons as much as you can.
I hear you. Well, you heard it here, folks. Get your weapons if you're hunting giant robot dinosaurs. Sweet.
I can get out this meeting. I want to try to get all the songs you guys are talking
So I'm here at the 2015 New York Comic Con, and I'm speaking with the author of a very unusual self-help book. Good sir, what's your name?
Keith R.A. DeCandido.
Very nice to meet you, DeCandido. Now, can you tell the folks at home what the title of your book is?
It's a Star Trek book called The Klingon Art of War.
Very interesting. Now, what kind of book is The Klingon Art of War?
It's presented as a historical text that was published in the Klingon Empire about 1,000 years ago, within the Star Trek universe. And then there's the original text from ancient times, and then there's modern commentary by a 24th century Klingon author who provides more recent historical examples that illustrate the 10 precepts that make up the book.
Wow, now that sounds very interesting. So what made you want to write something like a Klingon self-help book?
It was a collaborative effort. The book was put together by a packaging company in Seattle called Becker & Meyer, which has the license to do Star Trek, not actual novels, but other related Star Trek books. They did stuff like the Federation, the First 150 Years book, the Star Trek Maps book that I think Larry Nemeczek did, the autobiography of James T. Kirk that came out recently. Those were all with Becker & Meyer, and they approached me with the idea of doing the Klingon Art of War. They thought that would be a cool kind of mashup of a philosophical Klingon text along the same lines as Sun Tzu's The Art of War. My book is a little more philosophical than it is tactical. It doesn't have specific guidelines for how to beat people up or anything, or how to fight war, but how to... Right. But it's more along the lines of how to live your life by the warrior code that the Klingons live by. So...
Well, that's very interesting. Now, what made you... how did you get started writing about Star Trek?
I've been a fan of Star Trek since birth, basically. My parents watched the show when it originally aired in the late '60s. I watched it in reruns when I was growing up here in New York in the '70s when Channel 11 used to show it every night, and I was always a fan. And I've been a writer pretty much since I was 6. And then in 1994 I started publishing regularly, and then in 1999 I was approached by the editor at Simon & Schuster, who had read my other work and gave me the opportunity to pitch, and it just steamrolled from there. I've been writing Star Trek fiction in some form or other since 2000. So
wow, that's quite a while. So what are some of your other works?
The other Star Trek books I've done, I did a book called Articles of the Federation, which was kind of a Star Trek version of The West Wing. It follows a year in the life of the Federation president. I've done a whole bunch of books featuring the Klingons, which is why I got approached to do the Klingon Art of War in the first place. I've written a bunch of books that take place within the Klingon Empire, a series that took place on a Klingon ship. I did a book called The Art of the Impossible, which was about a historical Cold War between the Klingons and the Cardassians. I've done a couple of Next Generation books, one called A Time for War, A Time for Peace, one called Q&A, which was sort of the ultimate Q story. I did a whole bunch of books for the Starfleet Corps of Engineers series. I've done some short stories, I've edited some anthologies, and a whole bunch of other things. So.
Wow, that sounds that's quite a body of work.
That's just the Star Trek stuff. I've done a lot of other licensed fiction along those lines. I've written in about 25 different media universes. Most recently, I did a Sleepy Hollow novel based on the Fox TV show. I've done a novella for The Heroes Reborn, the new NBC series, which will be out in November. One of 6 novellas that they're doing that tie into the miniseries. And I've written a Stargate SG-1 novel. I've done 3 supernatural novels based on the TV show. I did a Farscape comic book a few years back. I've done a lot of media fiction. So
very nice. Now, do you have any advice for somebody who might want to get started writing this sort of stuff?
The best advice I can give is to work on your own stuff first. Establish yourself, get yourself published, writing your own original fiction, and because these things don't start with the writer, they start with a publisher. A publisher buys the rights to do books based on Heroes or based on Star Trek or based on Supernatural, Sleepy Hollow, whatever. Once the publisher gets those rights, then they turn around and hire writers. They're more likely to go for an established professional writer. So that's your best bet, is to get your own work published, establish yourself as a professional writer first, and then it'll be much easier. You'll develop the contacts, and you'll develop, meeting other writers, meeting editors, talking to editors, and giving yourself a resume that will impress editors. At which point, then you're more likely to be approached for something like that.
Very cool. Now, I have to ask, what is your all-time favorite Star Trek story?
Oh, jeez. Probably... my Klingon bias is going to be showing here. What I liked in particular was across Star Trek The Next Generation and Deep Space Nine, there were a series of Klingon political stories that started in 1990 with Sins of the Father on Next Gen, went all the way through to a Deep Space Nine episode in 1999 called Tacking Into the Wind. And Tacking Into the Wind in particular, I love because it tied together so many previous Klingon stories and brought it to a wonderful climax. And so that probably would be it. I also have a great fondness for one particular story, Deep Space Nine story that was called Far Beyond the Stars, in which we saw the actors playing the roles of science fiction writers in the 1950s. Yeah, so that was a really cool one too. It had a lot to say about race relations and gender roles and how far humanity still has to come and has to go, which is what Star Trek has always been best at anyway. And it was just a wonderful story. So.
Well, I'm going to have to look out for Far Beyond the Stars on Netflix, Ben.
Definitely.
Yes, and now also there was one more thing that I had to ask you. Do you think that the time is now for a new Star Trek television show?
I think so. I've always, with all due respect to Harv Bennett and to Nicholas Meyer and to J.J. Abrams and all the other people who've done Star Trek movies, Star Trek is better suited to television. It always has been. I've always felt that it's better suited to the smaller, character-driven, humanistic stories that television is more suited to than the summer blockbuster action film that the movies almost have to be right now. So I would love there to be another series. I mean, it's obviously not up to me, but I think it would really, now that the J.J. Abrams movies have at least done the job of getting the general public interested in Star Trek again. Star Trek merchandise has been on the rise since 2009 when that movie came out, and just in general, there's been more interest in Star Trek again. You're seeing a lot more, like even here, you're seeing more Star Trek costumes the last 6 years than you did in the 6 years before that. So the interest is there, and I think it would be great.
Well, sir, it has been a pleasure speaking with you. So the Klingon Art of War, so where can folks pick this up?
You can find it in bookstores, Barnes & Noble and all other independent bookstores. Here's the cover. Lovely cover. And you can get it online also from like Amazon and Barnes & Noble and all the usual online book dealers. It's available both in print and as an ebook. So
excellent. And where can folks find more of your work?
If you go to decandido.net, that's DECANDIDO.net. I'm in the process of revamping the website, so right now it's a little kind of chintzy looking. But as a web designer, I make a great writer, and but someone's redesigning it for me. But it's a link to my online presence. You can get to my Facebook page, my Twitter feed, my blog, and there are ordering links for my most recent books there as well. So,
fantastic. Well, it has been a pleasure speaking with you, sir. I hope you enjoy your Comic-Con.
I'm having a great time. Thank you.